Welcome back everyone, Canyon Aeroad today, headset bearings, fully internal brake hoses through this handlebar, through the stem, obviously through the bearing itself, so not quite as straightforward as most, but not too bad. Also changing the bar tape at the same time, so that makes life a bit easier. If you can do both at the same time, I'd recommend it. Let's get going. Yeah, these bearings are in pretty sorry state. You can see sort of dead brown grease coming out of here, so he decided to get someone else to do this one for him. It's not too bad a job. I've done a few of these videos now, but I thought I'd do one specific to this Canyon because it's quite a popular model. Hopefully it helps somebody out. Like I say, we're also changing this bar tape as well. It's not in the best condition around here. So if you can time it so you can do the bearings and the bar tape at the same time, it's a bonus. Because potentially trying to rewrap bar tape is a challenge. So we're going to take this off first and see what we've got underneath here. It is on AXS, so there's no gear cables. It's a wireless system, so that's a bonus. We do have to disconnect the brake hoses though. So these bars are the extendable ones that Canyon do. Some people say it's so they can fit them in the box and save money for packaging, etc. But to be fair, I think it's quite a good idea. You see these markings here, basically you can set this to any width you want. You do need access to these so you can disconnect the brake hose and pull them through the bar. Take the wheel out, obviously. Oh, damn, that's tight. Ripping it, guys. Jesus, that's way too tight. Doesn't need to be that tight, guys. You have to use a hammer to take your wheel off if you've done it too tight. So I'll just flip the bike upside down to give you a better view. These are the bolts that you would use to adjust that, but basically put them through whatever hole you require. This is the brake hose that we'll be disconnecting out of this piece here. So if you've got some spare hose, it's a big bonus. I've got loads on this on both sides. There's at least 20mm slack here doing nothing. So that makes life a lot easier on this job if you've got that. And then take this piece of the handlebar off, just obviously remember where you've had it before. Pretty straightforward. It is a very unusual system around here, as you'll see when we get the fork out. It's basically a two-piece really. It's sort of the stem clamps over the fork with one bolt. It's very unusual, totally different to anything else you'll see. Typical. Right, anyway, so let's disconnect this hose. With it being SRAM, this is a dot system as well, so you're going to have brake fluid basically flicking around everywhere, so be careful of your paint. Once you've undone it out of the lever, we're going to cut this off. Like I say, we've got loads of spare hose here. If you don't, then you're going to have a slightly more complicated job. You need to run new hoses to the whichever caliper. Right, so that's off. Keep this flare nut, you can just put it back in your lever if you want. Remember which hose is which. In the UK, this is the rear hose, so I'm just going to label that up. Take this piece of the bar off now. That's off, just pull the hose through there. Really easy, all you got to do is route it from there to there when you put it back together, so that's not challenging. Same on this one, let's disconnect this hose. And that one's out, let's cut that off. And this piece of the bar. Again, the hose just comes straight out the bar, easy. Just make sure you keep on top of any potential brake fluid splashes you've got. Just some brake cleaner, isopropyl, I think even water dissolves it. Just make sure you keep that clean. Right, then we can go to the stem. So on the stem itself there's a plug here that you put a special tool in to preload the headset. It's not like a normal bolt, everything's different on this, like I say, so you don't need to take that out yet. You need to undo this T25 here. Basically the fork's in two pieces now, so there's a potential this bottom half will actually fall out of the bike, so just be wary of that. I did already loosen that, it wasn't that loose. And that should just come off now. And the fork should just come out with its brake hose attached. Like so. So there's one. And then again this will come out. So there's the rear brake hose that goes through this hole in this stem. You just push that through there again. Plenty of grease in here. I'll show you the system when we get it all out, how it goes together, because it's, like I say, it's a bit on the unusual side. So I'll show you all this when we get it out. Again, just be careful you're not flicking DOT brake fluid everywhere. Right, so there's the rear brake cable. So that's the other half of the stem off now. We've now got access to this bearing. Easy. Bottom bearing is now easy as well. This is the lower bearing now. This is the little stop that basically stops the fork from turning and smashing itself into the handlebar. So it's quite a good idea really. So you just nip this out. This just stops against part on the fork that basically stops it steering, oversteering really. So I keep that somewhere safe. Hopefully this lower bearing should pull out fairly easily. Yep, good, happy days. That's what would have made this job just the worst disaster in the world if this was seized into the frame, but like I say, the customer has managed to just loosen it off and get grease around that bearing on a fairly regular basis to protect it, so he's done a good job there. So that's out. It's just a case of obviously cleaning this up. Spotless. Right, cleanliness is definitely next to godliness on this one, so get everything super clean before you put your new bearings and grease in there. Right, that's spotless. So new bearing going in, loads of grease on this, inside, outside, every side you can think of. Definitely don't want this seizing up. Definitely not lubricating anything, obviously. It's a sealed unit. This is purely to stop things seizing in here, because that's just the worst job in the world. Especially on a carbon frame. It'll just drop into there then. That's in. The big B came in the workshop. Then we can put this bolt back in here. A little bit of grease on that thread again just to stop it seizing. It's such a vulnerable area on the bike down here where everything flicks up off the road and gets into this area. Just a drop of grease in this thread here as well. You don't want that seizing, the bolt in there seizing up. Just a little bit. Quite a big fan of canyons. I know that some people love them, some people hate them, but I quite like them. Alright, that's in. The fork itself, obviously we're just going to clean up this area. Two little steps on here basically that stop against that piece in the frame itself just to stop the fork over rotating. You get them on mountain bikes as well. Normally across, I think, do them systems. Bit of corrosion on this race, but you obviously inspect the fork for any damage around these races, that's normal. And at the top here, if you've got a deep groove in there, you've got problems. So moving on to the stem, this is obviously the other bearing. So this bearing will now pull off this. There's a seal on here. Well, they've been doing a very good job, but there is a seal there. Like that. And this is the piece here that we'll be looking at putting it back together later. This seal just clips inside the bearing like this, so it'll just peel out. Like that. That's the dead bearing. Seen better days, that has. Still just about rotating, but obviously this is a new one we're going to put into it. Clean this seal up first and we can refit that in. Some of these kits normally come with a replacement seal for this, but the customers supplied me with these bearings and you didn't get that. Yeah, we'll have to reuse this one. Some of them come with new ones, which I would advise because this is looking a bit tired. Anyway, it's going in. Obviously clean up this top cup as well. Right. Customer's done a good job getting some grease around there on a regular basis. So this fork can actually go back in now and we can just support it from underneath. Make sure you get your hose through. And just manipulate this through the frame, pretty easy. Like that. You can use your Velcro strap. No one normally uses this part tool. Stool does a good job. You can use the Velcro strap around here to hold it all together or something similar. Just before we continue, I want to take a minute to thank this channel's sponsor, sportandleisure.com. They've been with us for 6 to 8 weeks now. Fantastic sponsors. Sport and Leisure are a UK-based cycling retailer with thousands of parts, tools, clothing, accessories ready to ship. Their listings are clear, proper descriptions, and really good pictures, which I appreciate. Some of the sites you'll find yourselves no good. Also, if it's listed in stock, and it really is in stock, it's not in another country waiting to come in 3 or 4 weeks' time, as you often find. It's sitting on the warehouse shelf, ready to go. If you order before 3 PM, it will ship the same day. UK shipping on all orders is free. But if you need it faster than that, the next day delivery is only £2.50 in the UK. So if you need some new wheels, brakes, group set, tyres, whatever, check them out. Their prices are pretty much unbeatable. They really are. If it's in stock, you're not going to find it cheaper elsewhere, believe you me. They've also given me a discount code for viewers. So if you use the code BCR10 at checkout on your first order, you'll get an additional 10% off the already fantastic prices. So links in the description below. Thanks again to Sport and Leisure for supporting the channel. Now let's get back to this beautiful video. So then it starts to get a bit more, slightly more challenging. So you need to run these hoses obviously through the stem again. You probably need a kit to run those through. So the brake hoses will run down these slots next to where the wedge goes. You've got to get it all together at the same time without it all falling to pieces and get these hoses through the bar. It does get slightly more challenging at this point. When you're manipulating it back together, you just make sure these stay where they should be. At the moment it doesn't make any difference. So going back to the stem, this is the piece that actually holds it all together. It's a bit of corrosion showing under here. Clean all this up like that. This is the important collar bit. It'll only go one way. It's got a little locating peg here to make sure you get it the right way anyway, so you can't really go wrong. What we're going to need is some fibre grip for the inside of the stem. Some people put it on the inside of this as well. So this is the clamp that goes inside the stem and presses against the other side of the fork. It's marked as top, so you can't really get that wrong either. You can buy all these as spare parts still from Canyon, so that's pretty good, should you require them. So that basically sits inside there, like so. The tricky bit is to stop this falling to pieces while you're trying to put the rest of it back together. So Canyon asks you to put a little rubber plug or something in here. I've got something that should actually work. Just locate that in there, and that should hopefully just stop it all falling to pieces while you're putting it back together. But yeah, something like that. I know people use cable ties, sticky tape, whatever, but that's the challenging bit, is to stop that falling to pieces every time you're trying to put the bike back together. So we'll use that. So you do need to completely cover the inside of this piece, basically the inside of this stem piece, with carbon paste. Slide this piece on, get this clamp located, then I'm going to use that rubber plug just to hold that together, hopefully, like so. So that slides up there then. So that's basically kept that out of the way. The issue with this is basically that just keeps falling to pieces and you're forever battling it, so that should work quite nicely. And then it's a case of getting the hoses through here. You leave the spaces off until you've finished. Drop this seal on, drop this bearing on now, obviously. And a good dose of grease again on here. Drop some in the frame as well if you want, same thing. You don't put these two spacers back on yet, you put all this in first, and then put the spacers on, and then you need a special tool just to finish the preload on it. Should get that tool with your bike. So if you bought it second hand and you don't have one, you can get one from Canyon. Right, so that's basically ready to go back into the bike now. That's where the fun and games begin. So you've got to get the brake hoses through here. It can be very, very tight around here. You'll probably need to use some tools to pull those through. I'm going to use a part tool one or something similar. So the one I'm going to use is basically this rubber thing here. It just slides onto the hose. And sort of, when you pull it, it basically grips itself on. It's really, really good. That's what you do with that, and then you can just pull that straight through. Who makes this? I don't know. MUQZI. Yeah, they make it. But it's a really good bit of kit. So it comes with a little attachment there, and there's 3 or 4 different bits in the kit. But this one here is really, really good for brake hoses. So I'll take this off, thread it through the stem, hopefully, and then pull one through at a time. So I'll try and show you, basically slide these up here so you get easier access. That's more of a straight line to the centre of the stem. Then you can just thread this through. It goes into the stem itself. Thread that through and it will come out one side basically. There's a magnet on it if need be. Well, it comes out that side there. So this is for the front brake in the UK. So pull it all the way through. Drop this back down the middle of the stem. Like that. And now this piece will screw onto here. That screws on there and this bit goes on the hose. We can do that. So this is the front hose here. And this will then go on here. So you basically just slide this up now. And this is where it gets challenging. So you've got to get that through the stem. So you can pull quite hard on that tool. You've got to manipulate that piece through the stem at the same time. There's quite a sharp radius here where it's got to go through there. That's the challenge. Just take your time. And everything's covered in paste now as well. Alright, so there's one pretty much through. Push that through now. And there's the end of that hose. That's the front one. So we'll just try and repeat that on the other one. It could be easier said than done. Same with the back hose. This actually goes through the stem itself here, so make sure you get that through there. It doesn't go through the bottom. It goes through this hole and underneath the bearings, and then you just pull that through again. Just. It's not that bad. And then just try and pull it through again like I did the other one. Not too bad actually. And this will basically just slide over here now. Just make sure your hoses stay the right side of this wedge here. Pull these hoses through here at the same time as sort of pushing it all down together. 2 pairs of hands is always useful for this one. I don't have. So start that there and basically pull these hoses like that. And then just make sure that these are in the right side of where you want them. It's going to be a bit difficult for me to film that for you. Like that. So it's basically in there. So that goes in there like that. Then the spacers go on one at a time. Again, there's a little peg on the back of this here that locates into the bottom of that. Like so. And they just clip together. Like so. Like that. You basically push all that down to the kit itself. This is all the wrong way around, isn't it? Like that, sorry. And it will locate into that bit there. Wow, done. So easy. Right, I'm going to basically very loosely knit this up because unfortunately I don't have that tool at the moment. I can't find it. So rather than it all fall into pieces, I'm just going to very lightly nip this up for now. And then we'll come back to set the preload later. Right, that's not going anywhere now. There's obviously a lot of play in there yet because we've not set the preload, so it's a bit noisy. Right, you can put your handlebar back together. You didn't see many videos where you have to do that, do you? So there's two channels here, one's for gear cable, one's for brake cable, but because we're on no DI2, we're basically aiming for this one for the brake, so we're going for the front. And that just basically comes straight out there, dead easy. Slot this back into the bar, put those bolts in. Obviously set it to where you had it before, which is there. And this hose here needs to be re-terminated to the lever. Get these bolts back into the bar. I'll put a dropper Loctite on there as well. And these are 6 Newton meters. And the other piece of your handlebar. Such a strange concept. Again, just push that one through, super easy. It's literally 2 inches you've got to route to. And then 430 again on this one. Loads of hose. This is all just carbon paste you can see on here, it's everywhere. It's a preset part tool one. Okay, handlebars are back together. Drop the back wheel in there. This is only so I can get it off the stand in a minute because I've got another bike I need to do first before I finish this. Right, with the bike on the floor, I can just basically put a little bit more load on this stem. You're basically preloading it down like that by hand, and then you need your special tool that goes through this rubber cap to actually finish the preload on the headset. And that feels a lot better. You can see the stops there, that's the stop on that at the top there. Beautiful. Good. Right, now we've got brakes to look at again. All this slack here will basically feed back through the handlebar once we've terminated it. I'm just going to clear all this rubbish off. It's everywhere. One of the slightly more challenging ones because of the design around here and holding it all together while you put it in. But it's just do the hoses through the bearings again, no different to anything else really. Just a bit of a strange design. So all that's holding your bike together basically is this one bolt here, your fork. Right, it's going to refit a new barb and olive into this. Bit of red DOT grease on there. Connect it up, see if it needs a bleed. Quite often if you just chop that and you're not actually press the lever or anything, you don't need a bleed, but we'll see how it feels. And then the left hand thread for the olive just screws onto the end of that. Don't forget your nut on the hose, that always helps. That's me, I know. And just screw the olive onto the hose, it's got a left hand thread. And just until it's ever so slightly below the surface of that. And then screw that into the lever. A bit more of the red DOT grease on here. And it'll go in there and then get the nut started. Yeah, tighten these up. There's not going to be a video about bleeding SRAM brakes, don't worry. It's just going to be quickly redo this, quickly wrap the bars up and we're done. I'm still waiting for that tool, aren't we? That will just locate back into its lever. And then you can try your brakes. Going to need a quick bleed. There is a little bit of sponginess there if you pump that. You can see the lever travel getting shorter. Let that go and then we'll go back to the bar so it doesn't need a bleed. Just going to fold them back, otherwise I end up with a big crease around here when you're not using them like that. I'm not covering SRAM brake bleeding in depth in this video, it's more about the headset, but obviously we do have a little bit of air just in this section of hose here. All we're doing is pushing fluid up from this caliper into this lever. Just get rid of the air hose basically, maybe backwards and forwards a couple of times. This is non-bleeding edge caliper, so you can push it up from the actual caliper itself and it'll just clear this section of hose here. Most of the time you'll get away with chopping a hose without actually needing to bleed it, but this one just a tiny bit spongy, so we'll just clear this section. There you go. There really shouldn't be much in there at all. And I'm just going to force that back down to the caliper until there's no air. Like I say, I'm not going to do a half an hour bleeding SRAM brakes video. I might do a video one day, but there's a lot of really good ones out there with multiple camera angles, etc. So I'm not sure there's a need for yet another one. Newer SRAM brakes are finally going over to mineral fluid, thankfully, so you don't melt the paint on your bike if you spill a drop of this. Right, happy with that. I'm just going to close these off and seal the system. The brakes are lovely now, so all we need to do really is wrap the bars, and then we need to set the preload. We can do it in either order you want, but we need to set the preload on this and finally torque this back bolt up, and job done. Right, I'll just wrap these bars first. We're using super Kaz tape on this one, just a black one. Hopefully that keeps the bar tape police happy. It's come out quite nicely. That. Last thing to do is just preload this headset. Just take this plug out here. And then you need your special canyon tool that goes down to here into that silver plate that we saw on the fork. That just threads in there. Make sure this is loose. I already nipped this up previously, remember, so I'm just loosening this back off now. So that's completely loose. And then just like you do with an Allen key normally, you just tighten this down to remove the preload on the headset. Like so. Let me just get it out of the stand so I can rock it back and forwards. Just like a normal bike, just on the front brake, rocking backwards and forwards until there's no play in the headset. Just a gentle tweak on there. And that feels good. Now we can just torque this bolt up. Just before you go for the final torque, make sure your bars are obviously aligned as well. This is your last opportunity to do that. So just nip that up when you're happy with it, and then torque this up to 12 Newton meters. You see how tight I didn't do that up? It's literally just preloading this bearing. You're not trying to hold the bike together with this. So I'll leave this bolt in while you're torquing this, otherwise it can come out of adjustment, and then torque this to 12 Newton meters. And that's it. Then we can take this out and put the rubber plug back in the top. And just push that in there, like that. And we're finished. So there we go, that's that one finished. Headset, final boss level, the most difficult one out there. Maybe, maybe not. It's certainly different, that's for sure, with the two-part system, but actually going through the bars, etc. is very similar to any other integrated system. There can be a bit of a challenge for the home mechanic for sure. You do need a bit of kit, bleeding the brakes, etc. Like I say, I recommend if you can wrap the bars at the same time, you could get access to these anyway, so if you can sort of put a grin and bear your headset bearings until you're changing your tape, I'd recommend doing that. It just saves you having to do the job twice, basically. So it's super smooth now, doing exactly what it should be, so it can go back to the customer. So I hope you did enjoy the content. If you are enjoying the channel, then please consider hitting the magic like button and the all-important subscribe button. It really does help the channel grow, and thank you very much for watching.